for me, being in the NFL, it was like you got your off season, you come back in the locker room, and here we go again. You know what I mean? It's season 2.
It's awesome as an actor and you know, as a fan, just to be able to work with them.
It's a great feeling to see your name on the call sheet with the biggest movie stars of all time. It's a big privilege. Yeah, amazing.
That thing belongs in a museum.
We all do.
We've done enough films in our life that some we're happy about, some we're not happy about, but let's not blow this moment. Originally, when I got involved with writing The Expendables, I always thought that there'd be a possibility for a franchise. Usually when you work in a genre like this and you have all these kind of characters, I think it's smart to think beyond that particular episode, if you want to call it that.
Well, I believe the reason the first Expendables was so successful around the world was the fact that we were sort of getting back to a basics in terms of action. We just got back to, you know, that old-fashioned kind of action that people have missed, I think, throughout the years. And we had the actors who could pull that off.
We heard rumblings shortly after Expendables 1 finished, and there was already talk about a script to do Expendables 2. So I think the plans started and the wheels started turning almost immediately. And I think everybody anticipated that there's no way a movie with these guys in it could not be successful. So I think we fully expected it.
I had every deal that I was making from then on out was like, whatever you do, when Expendables 2 hits, I gotta go, you know?
This is different in scope and size. I mean, the first Expendables was gritty and down to earth, and I think this one has the same grittiness to it, but it just has more scope and more of a vista. You see a lot more on the screen.
The first one was kind of confusing in the sense that you're caught between a rock and a hard place, or it's a feathered fish. I didn't know exactly whether it was going to be semi-serious or you want to be more of a comedic tone, where the guy's going to actually perish, or is there going to be moments of introspection, or is this going to be comedy? So I just threw it all in there, and that's why the film, it didn't quite have as an even tone as the second one. The first one was more of experimental, and that's usually what happens when you're working with multiple characters like this. It takes a long time to figure out what kind of film you really want to make.
I think Sly came up with a great concept to, you know, put together a team of guys like they used to do in the Dirty Dozen and pictures, you know, that this audience now today haven't seen for a while.
But I think that camaraderie that Sly captured in the first one really worked. People like that. They like the jabs at each other, the poking fun of each other, and you know, locker room talk, if you will. Guys that are on a team, anybody who's been on a team anywhere understands. You know each other so well, you know exactly where those buttons are and how to push them. And I think they took the things that worked in the first movie and they amplified them in the second movie.
You're not doing what I think you're doing!
Yeah, I am!
Let's do it!
Come on, let's move! I always thought that there was room, obviously, for improvement, and getting Arnold and Bruce back in there and bringing in Chuck Norris and Von Damme, it just lends itself to more of a spectacle. The thing was now, to be able to do all that and direct it at the same time it was way too much, way too ambitious.
You know, considering the first one almost killed Sly, I mean, while we were doing it, you know, you're talking about a man who faced almost every injury in the book, every pressure in the book. This was a labor of love on his behalf, but it was so grueling. And it was hard to watch. I think for a lot of the guys on the set, it was hard to watch one man go through all of that.
The first one was pretty labor intensive, and I learned from that if we're gonna go any further with that, it's just no way to be able to run in front of the camera, jump and look at the position of 7 cameras at the same time, come back and try to be somewhat lucid. It's too much.
Simon, for me, is the perfect fit for the movie. He is a guy who knows action, and I know he knows action down to the finest beat.
And they're both teaming up to collaborate and put their collective geniuses together. Simon is a great shooter. You know, he's used to shooting big multi-camera action pictures.
My process is to storyboard all the action, and I get the stunt coordinators to get together and the stuntmen, and we work out in very fine detail what the action sequences are going to be. And it takes months. I mean, it probably takes about 3 months of prep for those action sequences.
But more than that, he is also an action character director. He gets performance out of action stars. And in this film, more than anything, he understands the humor between the guys, how to get the performance, how to get the humor, and how to make it all come together.
Phosphate rock, it's got a density of 1.852, melting point 44.2 centigrade. Guys, I want some gunpowder fast.
Do it. The man's a chemical engineer, right?
And a full-blood scholar.
But I thought that the characters, now they have to be fleshed out more. You have to know a little bit more about them. And so I started to write a bit more for Dolph and trying to catch Arnold's tone and Bruce's tone because I've known them so long.
Knock, knock. Who's there? What are you, now?
I sort of understand the rhythms.
I actually turned to him for character development and the dialogue.
Cut me loose, Frankenstein.
Because that's what Sly's so good at. And he knew these characters and he knew the actors from the first one. So I would constantly, during the shoot, turn to him and say, what would this guy say here? And because action movies, a lot of it is made up as you go along, or things change, or you see an opportunity.
The second one caught, I think, everyone's tempo, their natural pace, the way the audience, I believe, perceives them or wants to see them. That wasn't so evident in the first one. The second one was.
And Sly's, you know, an old master at the movie one-liners.
Let's all agree we're making a movie here that is a kind of a retrospective of some of our more well-known moments.
Hey, Trent, it's been a while. Who's next? Rambo?
So yeah, we just threw them in. Sometimes I think we maybe have gone a little too far.
I'll be back. You've been back enough. I'll be back.
Yippee-ki-yay.
But yeah, say let's use the baggage instead of trying to hide it, because we're not going to hide it. People are coming to see the baggage.
If I don't get this back, your ass is terminated.
In your dreams.
This was a much more relaxed Sly than all the hats he was wearing in the first one, and as stressed out as he was for the first one. So we as actors got to spend more time with Sly this time.
The first movie, it was hard, man. I mean, to see a guy almost kill himself while he's making a movie, I knew he needed that kind of, you know, respite where he could sit back and be a great actor and help us with our characters. And that's exactly what ended up happening on Expendables 2. He was there with the characters, he was there with the script, he was there with almost everything else. And then Simon handled all the film work and heavy lifting of how these scenes are gonna play out, how big this thing is gonna be. And it was a match made in heaven. I loved it.
I think there's strength in numbers, and Bruce and Arnold were very aware that this will probably never happen again.
Every one of them is a movie star by himself. Everyone is an action movie star. And you put all of them together and the relationship between all of them, it makes an event, and an event is something that the audience likes to see.
It's a one-off, kind of a culmination in a blending of all these careers, and then to throw Chuck Norris in the mix and of course Jean-Claude, the enticement was that it's never going to happen again.
Movies are like music in a lot of ways. When you hear a great song that you love, you remember exactly where you were. It's the same way with movies. I remember seeing a Chuck Norris commercial for Good Guys Wear Black. And he did this ultimate kick right through the front window of this car while it was rolling. And it blew me away, like, this is ridiculous.
You roll into a set knowing that, you know, well, these are the scenes we're shooting today, and I'm gonna be on film with 5 of the biggest action stars in the last 20 years. It's not really intimidating because they're very kind of down-to-earth guys and regular guys, but it's definitely surreal
I remember where I was, what theater I went to, who I was in love with, and it was a real surreal experience.
And I could see Schwarzenegger kind of looking at Stallone and Stallone kind of looking at Willis and all of us in the same tent. And it was just kind of one of those surreal moments. You're like, I cannot believe we're all standing here. This is remarkable. And I think it was remarkable for them as well. Consummate professionals. They showed up and they showed why they've been at the top of this game for as long as they have.
There's a thing where you're like, oh man, this is like amazing. But then there's another thing, there's a switch that says, they brought me here for a reason. I gotta bring it. Not only do I have to bring it, you remember all those movies and you remember all those moments, and then you have to say, I gotta be that good. I have to come up to that level. I think
it really lends itself to an epic action piece. I've not seen this before. As a lover of action pictures, I was like an audience member watching this, not a producer. I was in awe watching the monitors.
What Mr. Stallone is trying to do is feeding every character. He has to feed them like a big family. They have lots of names here. I mean, so you have to feed them on an equal way. It's like the padre of a family, of a table of movie stars get to feed them equally, and they're all gonna shine somewhere.
To make it a cohesive piece of writing, it's a lot of rewriting. It's a lot of experimentation. What looks good on Monday looks terrible on Tuesday. So the main thing was, every time they're on camera, it's gotta count. It really has to count, so they have to really own that moment.
It was a luxury, really, having him there as a writer, because I could always turn to him as we were shooting and say, we need to fix this, or we need to expand this scene, or we need to have another great punchline here, because, you know, in an action movie, everything's changing all the time.
Oh, God. Arnold's getting into that car, smart car, and the visual, when you're sitting in your trailer, you don't think about it. When you're actually on the set, his shoe is bigger than his car. You know what? Say that. So the mere fact that he says that line,
your shoe is bigger than this car.
All of a sudden, it's an Arnold-ism, yet it wasn't on the page. So you have to be able to create stuff in the moment. All these little things to just maximize their time on screen.
The most difficult thing, I think, about Expendables 2 was getting all these actors' schedules to overlap, because they've all got separate careers, they all live in different countries, and just to get them all on the set at the same time was one of the hardest things.
You've got about 10 or 11 characters. Each of them need their moment. The audience is paid hard cash for that moment, and you have to know when to pull the trigger, when to pull back, and then you only have them sometimes 4 days, 5 days. You have to slip them in where it's an inconvenient time.
There were some occasions where I couldn't get everybody together at the same time, and there are a couple of scenes where, particularly on the aeroplane, where I'm shooting in one direction, I'm shooting Sly and Jason talking to Jet Li and Dolph, and when I turn around to shoot the other way, it's in Hong Kong on a duplicate set 3 months later. But in the editing, you think they're in the same plane together.
Yeah.
I had to do that a couple of times, but most of the time I managed to get people together in the same scene, in the same frame, and I even made sure that they were in the same frame, because I figured if I've got Sly, Arnie and Bruce together, I'm not going to shoot singles, I'm going to shoot 3 shots, because it's so rare that they would ever be together like this in an action scene, that I made sure not only were they in the same scene together, they were in the same frame together.
So it was incredibly difficult for myself and the director, Simon, to coordinate all that. Incredibly difficult.
Just the logistics of getting them in the same country, let alone on the same set together, was one of the biggest challenges. The thing that was sort of similar and different about them is they have different fighting styles, but they were hand-to-hand fighters. Unlike a lot of the other action stars who use guns and knives and vehicles and whatever, Sly and Jean-Claude were the sort of definitive hands-on guys, even though they were different styles of fighting.
I said to the crew, I said, this is probably the last big movie fight I'm ever going to have with someone of this level. Van Damme is known as a fighter. You know, that's the thing, and the other guys are not. They're known as, you know, action guys. So I thought, boy, Carl Weathers, Mr. T, Hulk Hogan, Dolph Lundgren, who's a real fighter. So I said, I've been through the whole, this is the last guy left. And I wanted it to be memorable.
Over so soon.
it's kind of cool because it has all the element to be good. Because if you finish the movie this way with that big budget, and then you finish on that tunnel of bomb, bomb, bombs, the audience, they want to see that hand-to-hand combat.
I have to give Jean-Claude a lot of credit. The original fight was much more theatrical, where there was a helicopter involved and there was fire and hammers and hatchets and chains, and it just went on and on and on.
And myself, yeah, I'm very skilled because I started martial art since I was 11. So to me, to do a kick, it's like drinking a glass of water in a sense. So I was more concentrating on the acting.
Jean-Claude, much to his credit, said, I don't know, can we just have a moment together and discuss? We've been waiting for this. Let's just keep it pure. And he goes, this is what I do. He says, you do this.
And the guy has years of doing action movies, very courageous. So him and I was like, yeah, the will, and he has power because he was accusing some of his, punch in the stomach to see the shaking and everything.
Then I thought, why don't I do similar to what I did in Rocky III when it was against Mr. T, just make it savage, furious. Rocky hated Clubber Lang for what he did. He just wanted to tear him apart, and the feeling was mutual. So I thought, maybe this is just quick, and the build-up of it, that's like a fight in itself, just the dialogue. The intention was there, that that these two were just on a collision course, and it just had to end that way.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm gonna take your life.
I can't wait to see a script for Expendables 3, because obviously there's been rumblings about it almost since before this movie released, and now it's been very, very successful, and now we're waiting for a green light for a date. When do we get a start?
I think in Expendables 3, we have to bring about our clones. I think we have to start to bring in the newbies.
I think that's a brilliant idea to make it so that we're bringing in some other guys. And what's so great is that's already been established with the addition of Liam Hemsworth.
So you bring in this whole different group. They're apprentices, so you can maybe go on and transition out of it.
Sly, Arnold, and Bruce have officially reached sage mode, where they are the sages. They are the guys who've done it. You can't do it any bigger than these guys have done it. Chuck, Van Damme, they are worldwide icons. And it's really, they've reached the pinnacle of everything. But the next move for you to go to another level is to start teaching.
You're looking at a younger version of yourself that's kind of arrogant and thinks they know it all. So that could make for an interesting film. Of course, complementing that with action. But I think you have to transition into something unexpected.
Single action Colt revolver. If you noticed in the movie, Sylvester Stallone carried this as his backup weapon, and he ends up using it in several occasions in the movie, carries it behind his back. When he runs out of ammo in his 1911, he has to go to his backup, and this is the one that you see him going to a lot.
Colt Single Action Army. Been around since about 1873. They're still in production today, and this is an Italian-made clone of that gun. Very popular with cowboy action shooters, and several manufacturers build this gun, along with Colt. Colt is still manufacturing it. It's a very, very popular gun with our foreign tourists. They love the cowboy aspect of it all.
The AUG looks like something out of Star Wars. Very common in a lot of movies, and a fairly simple weapon, actually.
Yeah, this was one of the first bullpup type designs that they used. The military, the Austrian military used it. And this is the first version. They went to an A2, and then they went to an A3 when they put a rail on it. And plastic, everything, the entire trigger group was plastic. It's a really cool gun. I mean, it looks very futuristic, very nice. The AUG means Universal Army Rifle, basically, or Gewehr rifle. This is a .223 caliber, also 5.56 millimeter. It's a bullpup design. In other words, the magazine is down here, and the empty cartridge cases come back here. It's very unique, very futuristic looking, even though it's been around since the 70s. Still in use today, and is still available commercially also.
What most of the bad guys use in the movie. This is an AK. The bad guys in the movie used one with wooden stocks, the older style. But again, a newer version of the same gun that most of the bad guys, and just about all the bad guys in a lot of movies, because it's a Russian-made weapon, tend to carry this weapon right here.
The AK has been around since 1947, obviously. Every third world country in the entire world uses it, made it. This particular one is a Bulgarian one. Plastic stock, and this one is full auto, so we're gonna have a good time with this one. The AK-47, probably the most popular assault rifle in the world. Made in virtually every country, a third world country. Communist China makes it, Russia, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary. It's even on the flag of the country of Mozambique, the gun itself. Very, very popular. You see it in all the movies. It's a very reliable, simple, well-made gun. Maintenance is very minimal on it. As far as accuracy goes, it's okay. If you had to take this against an M4, I'd take an M4 any day. The M4, you can shoot someone coming out of a barn door. With the AK, you'd be lucky if you hit the barn door. The HK G36, folding stock. This one is a semi-auto one, and the one in the movie had a shorter barrel. This is also a very popular rental. It's what the German military is using now, and again, very popular with the video games and the action movies. The HK G36 variation, again, this is a gas piston type setup. This one has an aim point red dot sight on it, collapsible stock. Used a lot in the various action movies, and very, very popular.
There you have it, a small arsenal for Expendables 2.
That is a dead zombie!
This is our rental range area. And these are the guns basically that are for rent that you can shoot. Basically, these are the semi-auto versions over here with the shotguns, the FAL, the SCAR, the SKS. Of course, we have the Uzi, and then we have the belt-fed, the squad automatic weapon, the M249. And probably the most popular gun here. Is the greatest gun, nice gun to shoot. It's a belt-fed. We're one of the only few places in the world you can shoot one of them without having someone shoot back at you. All of these guns that you see here are commercially available. However, the laws vary from state to state. Here in Las Vegas, in Nevada, we're a very open state as far as the ownership of full auto and assault, what they call assault weapons. We're very, very open with that. This is a very gun-oriented state, and luckily we enjoy a lot of the freedoms that a lot of other states don't have. Unfortunately, as I said, some states are very, very restricted. They're restricted on magazine capacity. They're restricted on type, the configuration of guns, as far as bayonet lugs or flash hiders and stuff like that. It's a big mismatch. So if you ever do want to purchase one, make sure that you are in compliance with your state laws.
Here we go, guys! Ready, and back to action!
Okay guys, I hope you had a blast learning about some of these real-life awesome weapons. I know I did. This is Randy Couture from the gun store in Las Vegas. Stay safe. Peace.